My fiancée, thinking I couldn't hear due to my deafness, boldly made a call right in front of me and revealed everything. She had already gotten legally married to her crush. She even planned to forge a marriage certificate just to deceive me. But she had forgotten. It was because of her that I lost my hearing in the first place. And it was me who spent years saving her family's company from bankruptcy. What she never imagined was, I had already recovered my hearing. I was planning to tell her on our wedding day to surprise her. But now there's no need for that anymore. I turned away, called off the wedding, and applied to study abroad. Without my support, I wonder, how many more good days can she and her crush really enjoy? Clothes were scattered across the floor. Sophia wrapped her arms around my neck and smiled lightly, signing, "We're getting married soon, and you're still this restrained." I loosened my tie, pulled her into my arms, and leaned in with a smirk. Normally calm and gentle in moments of passion, I turned into a ravenous wolf. My broad hand held tightly around Sophia's waist, not letting her retreat even half an inch. She was just about to reach her peak when the phone rang, shattering the intimate atmosphere. Annoyed, Sophia glanced at the caller ID, hesitated briefly, then answered. "Sophia, are you out of your mind?" The voice was loud. Instinctively, I looked at the screen. It was her brother, David. Sophia frowned and cut in. "What is it?" David's voice was heavy, like he was struggling to hold back. "You're marrying George in 3 days, yet you already registered your marriage with Makoto? Have you lost it?" Because she believed I was deaf, Sophia didn't bother lowering the volume. As I processed David's words, I froze, blood rushing to my head. I stared at Sophia in shock. I had lost my hearing years ago due to an accident involving Sophia. But after a long treatment, I recovered. With our wedding coming up in a few days, I had planned to surprise her with the news. But now, unaware of my reaction, Sophia snapped, "That's my business. It has nothing to do with you." David, unable to believe what he was hearing, pressed on. "Did you forget how Makoto was sick and afraid of dying and begged you to try experimental medicine, leaving you with lifelong side effects? Or how, when your company was in crisis, he just flew abroad without looking back? Hasn't he done enough damage to you?" Sophia shouted sharply. "He must have had his reasons back then. Now that he's finally back, I'm not letting go. If we don't leak the news of our marriage to his family with his awkward status, they'll eat him alive. You've figured things out for Makoto, but what about George? He helped you survive a near bankruptcy and build your current success. He even lost his hearing because of you. He loves you so much, and this is how you treat him?" Sophia's chest tightened, and her throat went dry. "I'll handle everything. I'll make a fake marriage certificate for George just to give him some closure. I won't mistreat him. You better keep this to yourself, or don't blame me for turning against my own brother." David was speechless. Sophia hung up the phone and tossed it onto the table. Her mood ruined. She pushed me away, tired. Watching the woman as she got dressed, I tried to speak through trembling lips, desperate to call her name. Sophia glanced at her phone and then signed something to me, her expression quickly turning tense. "Stay here and be good. I'll be back soon. There's a problem with the contract, I have to take care of it." I didn't respond, only nodded. I watched her walk out the door without a second glance. The warmth in the room that had just begun to bloom disappeared instantly, leaving only a bone-deep loneliness behind. The moment replayed in my mind. What I saw and heard still pierced through my chest like a blade. That wasn't about any company contract. I saw it clearly. It was a message from Makoto asking Sophia to come help him out of a bind. The room was silent, only the sound of my own breathing echoing. I pressed my arm over my moist eyes and fell into memory. Back when Sophia was the star of our school, I was just an average nobody. I was being extorted by some school bullies. I tried to fight back, but that only brought on harsher revenge. They even threatened to hurt my father. I had no choice but to give in. But once my father's income dropped, I couldn't afford the bribes anymore. One day they slammed me against the wall and splashed boiling water toward my face. I thought I was finished. But Sophia stepped in. She saved me and threatened them, making sure they never laid a finger on me again. That day, the girl with those stunning, elegant features and a noble coldness. I fell for her at first sight. But I also heard about her childhood friend, Makoto, and I knew Sophia loved him deeply. So much so that when Makoto got sick, he begged her to test an experimental drug. And she agreed, ending up with permanent side effects. Later, her health crumbled. Her family, cold and distant, failed to support her when rivals moved in to strike. Her company nearly went bankrupt from cash flow issues. Soon after, the news broke. Makoto left the country without a word. Gone like he'd never existed. She'd been sent to an elite boarding school since childhood. With no one else to help her, it was me, a newcomer at her company, who ran day and night, doing everything I could to help her turn things around. When debt collectors came knocking, I stood in their way. I was injured trying to protect Sophia. The blow to my head left me deaf. Sophia made a comeback. I became a disabled man. I went through endless rounds of painful rehabilitation, none of which worked. Sophia felt sorry for me. She learned sign language just for my sake. She held my hand, pointed to her heart, and signed every stroke with deep sincerity. I will love you for the rest of my life. I used to worry about the huge gap between our family backgrounds. But from start to finish, Sophia only ever had me by her side. I liked peach blossoms. She had a golden peach tree planted. I liked a niche fashion brand from Spain. She gave me shares in the company. So, when I thought our love had finally borne fruit, she didn't hesitate to choose Makoto. If that's how it is, then I don't want Sophia anymore. I took a deep breath and tapped into a chat window. I accept your offer to study abroad. I won't return for the next 10 years. Not long after I sent the message, my phone vibrated. You finally gave in. My son, you finally came to your senses. Sophia's not right for you. Honestly, the moment your hearing recovered, you should have walked away. At the mention of Sophia, those words I overheard earlier echoed in my mind again. Even though I had decided to let go, my heart still clenched hard. Emotions surged. I tightened my grip on the phone. Then, Mom, please start handling my study abroad application as soon as possible. After her divorce, my mother had gone into business and was too busy to care for me. Later, when her business took off, she wanted to mend our relationship by sending me overseas. Sophia was already in my life by then. By then, Mom had already prepared everything, even bought me property abroad. But for Sophia, I chose to stay. Then I lost my hearing and the topic never came up again. Now that she knew I had regained my hearing and agreed to go abroad, Sandra was overjoyed. Great. 10 days at most, everything will be ready. I hung up and exhaled deeply. Back when Sophia was trying to save her collapsing company, she signed contracts for massive cash infusions that bound her to domestic-only deals for a set number of years. During this time, she couldn't even travel abroad. That gave me peace of mind. Once I left, everything between Sophia and me would be erased. She'd never be able to find me again. With my decision firm, I started packing. Since I was leaving, I had to clear every trace of myself from this place. As I was about to get started, my phone vibrated. It was a social media update with 2 photos. In the first one, Sophia was blushing, leaning against another man's chest. Makoto stared at the camera with a smug look, their fingers tightly interlocked, each hand holding a red booklet. Marriage certificates. Sophia was wearing a mermaid-style dress. I recognized it. I had personally steamed that dress for her just yesterday. It wasn't a stolen candid. It was deliberately posed public. Sophia was really giving Makoto all the dignity he wanted. The same Sophia who had always hated taking pictures with me. So much so that even when she did, she refused to look into the camera. Now she was smiling in front of the lens for him. I knew her well. If she were trying to keep both sides appeased, she would never let Makoto post something like that. But he posted it anyway. The second photo was a bowl of noodles. In the background, Sophia stood at the stove wearing an apron. That's when I laughed. Back when Makoto was sick, Sophia risked her life testing medicine for him. She nearly died. She survived, but the side effect left her with sudden bouts of weakness, unable to even stand. I begged a retired medical expert to save her. 7 times. Only after kneeling in the snow for 2 hours did he finally agree to treat her. Eventually, the company began to recover, and Sophia's health followed. But my own body broke down from the strain. I was left with permanent damage. Even so, I always protected her. I never let her cook. I couldn't bear the thought of her fainting in the kitchen. But now, the woman I had cradled in my palms was cooking for someone else. I blew out my birthday candle alone, packed up all the things I regularly used. Then I gathered every shared memory with Sophia and threw it all away. The matching rings, our custom-made couple outfits, the stuffed animals we picked together, the photo albums from our trips, even the drawings I made hand-in-hand with Sophia, with both our initials signed at the bottom. I took them out of their frames and discarded them all together. It was very late by the time Sophia finally came home. Watching me quietly painting alone in the room, a trace of guilt flickered across Sophia's face. She signed to me, "Sorry, George. Things at the company have been hectic." I nodded silently, showing no emotion, and continued with my painting. Could have spoken. I could have told Sophia that my hearing had returned. But I didn't see the point. After I lost my hearing, I gradually found peace in painting. It softened my personality and made me calmer. So, Sophia didn't think much of my indifference. She sat down and leaned into my chest, her eyes full of affection. "Didn't I tell you to take care of your eyes? Why are you still up painting so late just like before?" Before I could respond, my phone screen lit up. Exactly midnight. A calendar reminder popped up. "Happy birthday." Sophia saw it and instantly froze. Her expression stiffened. Her eyes were dry, and her voice was a little unnatural as she asked, "Today's your birthday?" I didn't show much of a reaction. I just signed back, "I know you're busy." Hearing that, the tension on Sophia's face eased. She kissed me gently between the brows. "We're getting married soon. I've been swamped preparing for it, so there's been a lot of socializing. Once it's over, I'll make it up to you properly. It's been so long since we went to a class reunion together. Come with me tomorrow, okay?" I kept a calm expression and nodded in agreement. If Sophia had taken even a moment to look around the room carefully, she would have noticed how much had changed. But she noticed nothing. She called it a class reunion, but really, most of the people there were her childhood friends. "You're here, Sophia?" The voice was warm and familiar. I stood beside her, watching a man in trendy clothes walk up to us. After greeting Sophia, Makoto's eyes locked onto me. He sized me up for a second, then smiled and gestured with his hand. "Nice to meet you." In private, Makoto had taunted me relentlessly. But now he was pretending we had never met. My gaze stayed icy. Makoto turned back to Sophia. "The guys are all upstairs. You can't go, it's just us men. I'll take care of him." Sophia nodded and gave me a playful look. Makoto's suggestion was perfectly reasonable. Even if I didn't want to go with him, there wasn't much room to refuse. He slung an arm around my shoulder and led me up the stairs. Then, in a voice only the two of us could hear, he said, "I had someone look into your doctor. Turns out he already issued a recovery report. I know your hearing's back. You've been hiding it on purpose." "Huh? Still pretending to be deaf just so Sophia keeps feeling guilty, and that way you can keep clinging to her without her sending you away. TCH. Dream on." His voice grew darker, tinged with malice. My heart clenched. "What do you want?" No sooner had I spoken than I saw Makoto suddenly tumble down the stairs, right before my eyes. Out of instinct, I reached out a hand to stop him. The crash was deafening. Everyone turned to look. Sophia had just been discussing business. She turned and saw Makoto rolling down the steps. His head slammed into the railing. His wrist was gashed, blood gushing out. And behind him, I was standing still. From afar, my outstretched hand looked suspicious, like I had pushed him. "Makoto." Sophia's pupils shrank. She lifted her dress and ran over, half kneeling to cradle him. Seeing his bloodied head, Sophia's hands trembled. Makoto pointed at me. "I just wanted to ask George about his recovery after learning his hearing was back." But the moment he heard, I knew his secret. He flipped and pushed me. Right before he shoved me, he muttered something about how you wouldn't want him if you found out. Said I was threatening his place in your heart. Sophia's face froze. Then she turned to look at me. Her voice was cold and distant. Is that true? I looked into her eyes that once never held superiority over me, now pressing down with suspicion and judgment. All for Makoto. This trap. Her doubt. It was suffocating. Agony tore through my chest. I shook my head. It wasn't me. Sophia's hand paused slightly as she held Makoto. Her expression turned darker, colder. So, your hearing really is back. Makoto was taken to the hospital. Since I was a suspect, I went along as well. Before long, Makoto was wheeled out. I'm fine, don't worry. I understand George has been mentally affected from being deaf for so long. I don't blame you this time. Makoto struggled to sit up and reach for my hand. The wound on his wrist, just freshly bandaged, looked like it might tear open again. I forced a faint smile, but before I could say anything, Sophia pushed him back down firmly, allowing no room for discussion. The doctor just said you need to rest. Stop moving around. Makoto chuckled. Come on, I'm a grown man. Don't treat me like I'm fragile. Sophia didn't respond but turned to look at me instead. When? Did you recover? Her tone turned sharp and pressing. My chest tightened. I paused for a moment. Yesterday, I guess. I accidentally noticed I could hear some sounds again. Sophia's brows furrowed, but I could see the subtle relief in her expression. Why didn't you tell me your hearing was back? I lowered my eyes. What was the point? If I asked, would you have told me what your relationship with Makoto was? Would you have been honest with me? When I looked up again, my face was filled with bitter self-mockery. What was there to say? Should I ask why you treated me this way? Or should I bring up how, while you were being intimate with me, you had already registered a marriage with Makoto and were planning a fake wedding just to deceive me? My dignity was already trampled on. There was no need to hear it all over again. Seeing how unyielding I was, Sophia's frown deepened. She turned to look at Makoto's injuries. Her expression grew cold. So you pushed Makoto down the stairs over this? Just then, a nurse came in. The cut is quite deep. He's awake now, but due to a past illness, his body has trouble producing blood. The hospital recommends a transfusion. We're short on type O blood. Is anyone here type O? We need a donation. Makoto casually added, I remember George is type O. Is there still nothing you want to say about Makoto falling down the stairs today? Sophia placed her hands on my shoulders, staring at me intently. There was suspicion in her voice, scrutiny, and also clear protection of Makoto. A sharp pain clenched in my chest. I brushed Sophia's hands off, my tone calm. I already said it had nothing to do with me. And even now you don't show the slightest sign of remorse. Sophia rubbed her temples, seemingly exhausted. Then she looked up at the nurse. Take him to donate blood. He's type O, he can give. If you did something wrong, you need to pay the price. My eyes stung. I wanted to ask Sophia. Did she still remember the vows she once made? Back then, I was taking care of her while also running errands for the company. Sometimes I wouldn't sleep for several days, relying on coffee just to stay conscious. One day, I collapsed at the company entrance and was taken away by an ambulance. When I woke up, I saw the woman who had always been proud and composed slumped beside my hospital bed, eyes bloodshot, tears at the corners. She looked at me like I was a gift from the heavens, trembling as she said, I thought even heaven was going to take you away from me. After that, I was diagnosed with severe anemia due to chronic blood deficiency and further complications from long-term malnutrition. Sophia became so anxious, she would personally ask about everything I ate. And now it was Sophia herself who said I should donate blood. The cold needle pierced into my vein. I watched the blood bag gradually fill up. A bitter smile crept onto my lips. In the end, I still couldn't compare to Makoto. Let this be the repayment for the time Sophia saved me. From now on, I owe her nothing. Meanwhile, in the hospital room, Sophia was peeling an apple for Makoto. The look in my eyes before I left kept haunting her. choking up her chest. Seeing the flicker in Sophia's expression, a trace of triumph flashed through Makoto's eyes. Then he took Sophia's hand. Sophia, if this leaves a scar, you won't be disgusted by me, right? She paused for a moment, then looked up at him. I'll get the best treatment for you. Don't worry, it won't scar. The red apple peel spiraled down like blood. Sophia's mind drifted again to my face. Miss Kim, I think the gentleman just fainted. A nurse's voice called from outside the door. The apple knife in Sophia's hand clattered to the floor. She rushed out and immediately saw me slumped over a table, face pale as a sheet. Through the haze clouding my vision, I looked up and saw her face. Forcing a smile, I said hoarsely, "Was all that blood enough to comfort your beloved?" Sophia cradled my head in her arms, her expression unreadable and dark. Looking down at my bloodless face, her voice was tight, laced with panic and frustration. "I already promised to marry you. Isn't that enough to make you feel secure? Makoto and I grew up together. Now that he's back in the country, I've only been a little more attentive to him. But you got so upset that you wouldn't even tell me your hearing had recovered." She made it sound so noble, so righteous enough that if I hadn't overheard what I did that day, I might have been fooled. Sophia arranged for blood from another hospital to be delivered and even brought tonics, insisting I finish them all. I sat on the hospital bed watching Sophia, who had barely been around the past few days, now seriously preparing medicine for me. She looked exactly like she had back when I first fell ill, when she had clutched my hand, eyes bloodshot, begging me not to leave her. A surreal sense of absurdity spread through my chest. I opened my mouth. Right before I blacked out, there was one thing I actually wanted to ask her. "In your heart, Sophia, what am I really?" But I didn't get the chance to say it. Both Sophia's phone and mine lit up at the same time. She grabbed her coat and hurried out. "Get some rest. I need to take care of something." She left in such a rush. She didn't see the look on my face. She didn't see the message that flashed across my phone screen. "Please confirm your itinerary. Your flight to study abroad is in 5 days." The screen of my phone lit up. I picked it up. Cold fluid was still seeping into my veins, but it didn't matter anymore. Veins as I stared bitterly at Sophia's back, disappearing without the slightest hesitation. No more doubt. I tapped confirm itinerary. This can finally end. The infusion finished quickly. I leaned on the icy counter and checked myself out of the hospital. I didn't want to see Makoto, and I didn't even bother informing Sophia. "You look terrible," Makoto said casually as he rotated his arm beside me, also checking out. He glanced at the bluish bruise on the back of my hand and smirked. "Next time, try not to be so impulsive and push me. After all, when I get hurt, Sophia only feels more sorry for me." "Well, I'm happy for you then." I looked at him like he was a clown in a circus, completely emotionless. The slight sting in my words made Makoto's face darken a little. Sophia walked out of the doctor's office just then. Her gaze fell on my pale face, and her brow furrowed slightly. "I'll take you home." "No need," I replied coldly and directly, not caring at all about the shadow darkening her face. "I need to get back and prepare for my solo exhibition, so I have no time to play games with Makoto." Over the years, I'd built up quite a portfolio of work. Some had already been submitted to competitions. Now that I was about to head overseas, having a few notable awards would help me gain a foothold. But then Makoto laughed softly. "You mean the upcoming emerging designer showcase?" Sophia signed me up too. She even submitted all my materials for me. My throat tightened. It felt like someone had clenched my heart in their fist. After I lost my hearing, I had gone back to studying design, sketching at home, even sharing my progress with Sophia. But aside from her saying, "Don't overwork yourself," she always looked disinterested. I thought she simply didn't care about design. But now I knew it wasn't disinterest. She just didn't care when I was the one designing. Makoto pulled up the submission interface almost like showing off. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of his portfolio and suddenly grabbed his wrist. My voice trembled. "Where did you get these designs?" Makoto's designs were identical to mine. Makoto immediately turned to Sophia, clearly seeking help. I was deathly pale, my eyes shaking. I asked you a question. Sophia stepped in between us, gripping my wrist. Her hand was colder than the hospital floor, and her grip turned my knuckles white. George, you're being unreasonable. It's just a few design drafts. Makoto just came back from abroad. He's from a prestigious family. He needs this showcase to establish himself. What do you mean I'm being unreasonable? What do you mean just a few drafts? Those are my life's work. I could hear the tremor in my own voice. Of course, my designs were all stored on a USB drive at home. If Makoto had access, it could only have been with Sophia's permission. I had spent countless nights hunched on the couch, drafting those pieces. Sophia would wrap her arms around me each time and say, "Don't stay up too late." And now, all that affection vanished the moment Makoto appeared. Standing just behind Sophia, Makoto peeked around her shoulder with a nonchalant look. "Well, your hearing's back now. Sophia can just assign you a position in the company or something. Besides, those designs don't really matter to you. I'm just putting them to good use." I stared at Makoto's innocent face, my entire body trembling with rage. My already weak face turned even paler. Just then, my phone buzzed. A notification popped up. I looked down. Plagiarism. Submission rejected. The words exploded in my pupils. My voice quivered as I looked toward Sophia. She frowned and reached out to grab my wrist, but I stepped back. "Must you make this so ugly?" Sophia sighed, as if she were making a huge concession. "You were just casually sketching back then, weren't you? Now helping Makoto can serve as a kind of atonement for pushing him. I'm doing this for your own good. Besides, he's already agreed to credit both of your names." Seeing the rejection and disgust in my eyes, she rubbed her temples, clearly irritated. "That's enough. Don't make a scene. I'll pay the penalty fee for breaching the exhibition terms. Name your price." I suddenly laughed, eyes red, voice sharp with sarcasm. "Name my price, Sophia? How much are you offering for my blood, sweat, and tears?" Sophia had had enough. She pulled Makoto behind her, shielding him. Pressing her fingers to her brow, she said coldly, "You're too emotional right now. You can't think clearly. We'll talk again when you've calmed down." And with that, she turned and walked away, as if the woman who once stood by my hospital bed, terrified of losing me, was someone else entirely. I stood frozen in place, not moving an inch. After that, I became much quieter, and Sophia noticed. "I know you've been looking for a painting by that Spanish artist. One is up at auction right now. I'll take you there tonight. Think of it as a gift from me." Sophia looked at me gently, half coaxing, half pleading. I'd seen Sophia's gentle side before. She was always like this when trying to be tender. But my chest still burned as if boiling water had been poured straight onto it. I knew this was Sophia lowering herself for Makoto's sake. Yet she had always carried herself with pride in public, even back when she was on the brink of bankruptcy. She had never once bowed her head like this for me. I rubbed the corners of my eyes and answered softly, "All right, if Sophia wanted to offer compensation, I would accept it. She could keep the person, but I'd make sure to take the money." Just as I was coming downstairs, I saw Makoto hooking his arm around Sophia's. "Sophia, it's been ages since I've been to an auction. Let's go together." I gave Makoto a cold glance. "And what would you go there for?" His eyes immediately turned red. "Sophia, George must still be upset about what happened last time. He's holding a grudge against me, isn't he?" Sophia patted Makoto soothingly. "George isn't petty like that." I didn't even want to see Makoto's face. "If you two want to go, be my guest." "I'm not going." Sophia hurriedly spoke up when she saw me turn to leave. "I asked around, there's only one of that painting. If you miss it, it's gone." I paused, then turned back and got in the car. My portfolio was already gone. I'd heard that the professor who had once mentored me really liked that artist. If I could get the painting, maybe I could win back some ground. Sophia reached over to adjust my clothes, but I subtly pulled away. "That's not necessary. I said calmly. I'm not used to it. Makoto's lips pressed into a thin line. His fingers curled slightly, unnoticed. He was about to say something when the auctioneer's voice boomed across the hall. This piece is a classic work by Spanish painter Diva. Starting bid, 20 million. Sophia glanced at me, then confidently raised her paddle, securing the painting in one decisive move. I know you're still upset about everything before. I didn't handle it properly. I remained unmoved. Sophia looked helpless and leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper, meant only for me. We're about to get married. Stop acting childish. At that, I looked up, barely suppressing a bitter laugh. Married? Was she talking about the fake marriage certificate they bought with money? Afraid her darling might overhear the truth? A waiter entered the private room with practiced courtesy, holding out a clipboard. Sir, please sign your name. At these kinds of auctions, gifts often went unnamed in public, so it was customary to sign discreetly. Whomever the name belonged to, that's who the item was for. Sophia picked up the pen, just about to write my name. But Makoto suddenly raised his hand. Wait, Sophia, why don't you give the painting to me instead? He looked straight at her. My face remained cold. This painting is mine. Why would I give it to you? I just got back to the country. I need something to help me reestablish myself in the scene. This piece would make a great introduction. Makoto's tone was soft, eyes shining with calculated warmth. Though Makoto was speaking to me, his eyes were clearly fixed on Sophia. She hesitated. Makoto looked down, his expression gloomy. Do you remember, Sophia? Back when you tested that medicine for me, you told me, as long as I made it back alive, no matter what I asked for, as long as you could give it to me, you would say yes. Then he looked up at me. And George, even if you keep this painting, it's just for your personal collection. Even if you work in design, Sophia could easily arrange a job for you. No one would discriminate against you just because you were once deaf. Compared to you, I need this painting more. He turned back to Sophia, his voice soft, pleading. You know my situation. You're the only one who can help me now. He kept throwing around deaf like it was a slur. I was so furious. I actually laughed. You? But before I could finish, Sophia, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke. George, let him have the painting. I'll buy you something else. I stood there in a daze for a few seconds, unable to process what I just heard. What did you just say? I asked in disbelief. Sophia remained silent for a few moments. Her eyes showed a hint of guilt, but far more determination. Makoto's in a difficult position now. If you're just going to keep painting for your own collection, it truly would be more useful in Makoto's hands. George, you need to think about the bigger picture. The bigger picture? You're saying I'm not thinking about the big picture? Weren't you the one who promised to bring me here today? And you know how long I've been searching for this artist's painting. Makoto stood just out of Sophia's line of sight, a smug and provocative smile spreading across his face. Sophia tried to soothe me. Don't worry, I'll make it up to you. I shook off her hand. I was trembling from head to toe. Sophia, do you think I'm pathetic? Like a dog, one you toy with over and over again. Seeing me on the verge of breaking down, Sophia instinctively reached out to support me. Just then, the auction assistant walked in. Miss, the name has been signed. You can collect the painting now. Sophia paused mid-step. I'll go collect the painting. Wait here. If you see anything else you like, just bid on it. I'll come back and pay for it. And just like that, the private room emptied out. I wandered out of the auction house in a daze. Outside, it was pouring rain. I couldn't tell if the water on my face was rain or tears. I stepped out of the shower exhausted. Just as I looked up, I heard the sound of the electronic lock turning and saw Makoto's face peeking out from behind Sophia. George, it's raining so hard outside. Sophia said I could stay here tonight. I didn't even blink. Whatever. I didn't care. I was leaving soon anyway. Makoto could sleep wherever he wanted. Sophia tossed the car keys onto the cabinet at the entrance. Why did you leave without waiting for me? The sharp clank of metal against wood made me glance over. What was there to wait for? I met those familiar yet foreign eyes directly, my voice icy. You didn't keep your promise to me either, did you? Sophia frowned. I already said I'd buy you another painting. Can you stop holding on to everything so tightly? Without hesitation, I shook off her hand. He fell down the stairs by himself, but you said I pushed him. You gave him my designs and told me I was being ungrateful. You promised me that painting, then gave it to him and said I was the one making a scene. I laughed, bitterly. Am I the one being unreasonable? Or is it just that your heart has always been on his side? Sophia was momentarily speechless. Makoto looked at her with a heartbroken gaze, then turned to me, his voice accusing. George, that's too much. Have you forgotten who took care of you when you were deaf? With your background, if it weren't for Sophia, you wouldn't even get past the door of an auction house. She's done so much for you. How could you say something like that to her? As he spoke, he either stumbled or pretended to. His hand went back to steady himself, and in that moment he knocked over the photo frame. The one of me and my father crashed to the ground with a loud shatter. Then Makoto stepped on it. Oops. He looked at me. I didn't mean to, but his eyes were full of smug provocation, not apology. I crouched down, staring at the muddy footprint stamped right across my father's face. I hadn't wanted to pack such a precious photo away in a dark suitcase so early, but I never thought my family history wasn't a secret. Makoto knew exactly what this photo meant to me. He did it on purpose. Rage surged through my chest like fire. I trembled all over and then punched him hard. Bang! The sharp sound exploded in the silence of the living room. Sophia rushed to steady Makoto, who was holding his head, swaying slightly. George, what are you doing? She shouted. Makoto's expression instantly turned dark and cold. He yanked me by the collar and shoved me hard. I stumbled backward, slamming into the liquor cabinet, then crashing to the floor. The back of my head hit the edge of the table. All of it happened just out of Sophia's line of sight. From her angle, blocked by half the cabinet. She only saw me punching Makoto, then suddenly slipping and falling. Makoto pulled her close before she could check on me. Sophia, my head really hurts. Pain was splitting my skull. Through the haze, I saw Sophia walking toward me, but her figure brushed right past my outstretched hand and caught Makoto instead. George, you've gone too far. Her voice was cold as ice. It's because I loved you too much that you forgot your place. Stay here and reflect on yourself. She helped Makoto out the door, not sparing me so much as a glance. Warm blood trickled down the back of my neck. My hands shaking, I dialed 911. The harsh white light of the ER ceiling felt like needles in my eyes. I touched the bandage on my head. A faint stinging pain still lingered from the alcohol disinfectant. I opened up my feed. Makoto had posted a photo, captioned, Sophia was so worried about me she stayed up all night. In the photo, Sophia was tending to Makoto's wound, eyes lowered in gentle care. It overlapped almost perfectly with the memory of her peeling oranges for me in the hospital back then. I laughed, and in that moment I let go. What isn't mine? No matter how tightly I cling to it, I'll never be able to keep it. I stayed in the hospital for 3 more days. During those 3 days, Makoto posted constantly, and not a single message came from Sophia. I calmly liked every post he made. 3 days later, I was discharged. It was also the final day, my departure day. I printed out every taunting photo message Makoto had ever sent me. Then I ordered 2 fake marriage certificates online. I placed them all neatly in the most visible spot in Sophia's study. Others might not understand, but I knew Sophia would. Just as I stepped into the airport, a message from Sophia popped up on my screen. Apologize to Makoto. I'll consider giving you a way out. A way out? I didn't need one. I who once would never let Sophia's words fall to the ground unanswered left the message unread. I blocked her number with 1 tap, then pulled out my SIM card and tossed it into the trash. The boarding announcement echoed overhead. At the final second before the airplane door closed, I looked off into the distance, and there was only one thought in my heart. Sophia, you and I will never meet again. Sophia kept swiping across her phone screen again and again. But the pinned WeChat conversation still showed no reply. From yesterday until now, only her messages filled the thread. Something was wrong. A faint sense of unease spread across Sophia's chest. No matter the situation, I had always replied to her instantly. This was the first time I hadn't replied at all. Hesitating, Sophia tapped on my phone number, but before she could make the call, hers rang. Sophia, Makoto's clear voice came through. Can you come keep me company tonight? Sophia tensed up slightly. Right now. If you're busy, it's okay. Makoto coughed violently mid-sentence. I'm still not fully recovered from that fall. I'm just not feeling too well. I'm coming now. Be good and stay warm. Without another moment of hesitation, Sophia started the car and drove off. As soon as she opened the door, Makoto pulled her straight into an embrace. When she looked up, she saw him shirtless, revealing toned abs and a sculpted waist. Makoto scooped her up effortlessly. Sophia, I've been waiting for you so long. You're finally here. Her face flushed slightly, her fingers instinctively tightening around him. Well, I'm here now, aren't I? Makoto lowered his head to hide the smirk, tugging at his lips. He'd gotten some drugs from the underground club scene. Nothing serious, just enough to set the mood. Though Sophia often visited him, she had never stayed the night. But tonight, after tonight, once they crossed that line, their relationship would become official. Then he'd like to see what George, that pathetic clown, could possibly do to compete. The room was filled with the scent of burning candles. Makoto carried her to the bed and leaned in. Sophia's shirt fell open, revealing much of her chest. But the moment she wrapped her arms around Makoto, she suddenly froze. Following her gaze, Makoto turned to look, and his expression stiffened. On the computer screen was my design, my work. Back when I lost my voice, my life revolved around rehab and waiting for Sophia to come home. I couldn't hear. I couldn't socialize. All I could do was sit quietly on the couch and draw. Sophia used to hug me from behind while I sketched, her body pressed close, watching silently. And I never signed my name. I had a habit of marking each piece with a flower instead, a symbol that stood in for my signature. Sophia had seen that flower enough times to memorize it. And now, that exact flower faced both of them from the screen. In that moment, Sophia seemed to see my face again, the one that always looked at her with calm, quiet warmth. Her blood that had been stirred just moments ago suddenly cooled. Her chest tightened like it had been stabbed with needles. There's nothing to see. It's just a computer, Makoto said sharply, trying to snap her back. He placed a hand on her shoulder to pull her back, but Sophia suddenly sat up. She buttoned her shirt back up swiftly. Seeing her rise, Makoto quickly grabbed her wrist. Sophia, it's so late. Where are you going now? I have something urgent to take care of, she said flatly. Right now, there was only one thought in her mind. She had to see George. Immediately. Now, Makoto was fuming inside but forced a calm tone. I'm not feeling well, but I can manage. If you're busy, then go take care of it. This trick had never failed him before. Usually, Sophia would stay and comfort him immediately. But tonight, she actually looked relieved. I'll take you to the hospital tomorrow, she said. If you want anything, just use my card. Makoto's face froze. He stubbornly reached for her again. But Sophia seemed like she was in a rush for something. Be good. We'll talk tomorrow. With that, she ignored Makoto's reaction, grabbed her keys, and left without looking back. Sophia gripped the steering wheel, her hands trembling ever so slightly. It was a road she had driven countless times before, yet tonight, an unfamiliar nervousness clutched at her chest. She had never felt such a desperate urge to see George again. She pushed the door open. George, I'm back. But the expected hug, the familiar response, none of it came. Only the chilling, biting cold of the empty house greeted her. The joy in her heart instantly sank to rock bottom. She stepped inside, only to find many of the familiar items gone. The space now felt hollow, like someone had carefully erased the traces of another person's existence. What remained was exactly how it looked before George ever moved in. Sophia's chest tightened. A sinking, dreadful thought began to rise. She walked deeper into the house, searching room to room. George, don't hide from me, please. We're about to get married. Don't joke around like this. Her voice shook. She couldn't hide it. But every room was the same. Silent. Empty. They had argued before. But this time, this was different. No replies to her messages. A house devoid of warmth. Everything screamed the same truth. George was gone. Sophia was on the verge of panic. That impossible thought was becoming more and more real. She opened WeChat to message him, only to see the dreaded red exclamation mark. Message failed to send. Her mind snapped. Her heart pounded like a war drum. She turned on her heel and ran. She didn't see the small stack of things left near the entryway. Outside, the housekeeper was cleaning. Sophia rushed over, her words a frantic stream. Do you know where George went? Why isn't he home? Why are all his things gone? The housekeeper shook her head. I don't know. But seeing the anxiety on Sophia's face, she hesitated. Then spoke up. Miss, forgive me for speaking out of turn, but you haven't treated Mr. Wong the way you used to. You never used to leave him alone at home. Now you come back so late. Back then, you would never let him stay in the hospital alone. But now he had to go through all of that by himself. You and Mr. Wong, you were once so in love. When you were seriously ill and no one dared come near, when everyone else stayed away. Mr. Wong never left your side, never even changed his clothes, just stayed and took care of you. I still remember the doctor warning that the new medication might have side effects. Mr. Wong was so scared something might happen to you, that he drank it first before giving it to you. They said he got anemia from exhaustion. But we all knew it was from taking that medication. Mr. Wong, he was a good husband. Sophia's pupils began to tremble. She grabbed the housekeeper's wrist. What did you say? Why didn't I know any of this? The housekeeper flinched but continued. Everyone in the villa knew. Even the follow-up medication. Mr. Wong tested everything first just to make sure it was safe. Sophia couldn't hear anything after that. An overwhelming storm of guilt and fear engulfed her. Her hands were trembling so badly, she couldn't even hold her phone steady. She tapped the screen again and again, until she finally got to the contact screen. She hit dial. Staring at George's number, Sophia, a woman who'd never believed in prayer, not even when bedridden, found herself doing just that. Please answer. George, please pick up. The number you have dialed is unavailable. The number you have dialed is unavailable. Sophia called over and over again, but all she got was the same cold automated message. There was no connection, no answer. The anxiety weighed heavily in her chest. Even if she didn't want to believe it, now she had no choice but to accept the truth. I was gone, just like that, without a word. Sophia's eyes grew red, veins of bloodshot crawling outward. She called every mutual friend they had, but the moment she asked, she was hit with counter-questions. George? Wasn't he with you? I haven't heard from George. Did you hurt him somehow? One call after another. No one knew where George had gone. Sophia broke down, clutching her head, eyes red and voice trembling. George, where did you go? Her assistant rushed in flustered. Chairwoman Kim, there's a strange refund that just came through the company account. Sophia, already overwhelmed, snapped impatiently, but the assistant quickly added, It's from Mr. Wong's attending physician. Here's his number. Since it concerned George, Sophia forced herself to stay calm and took the call. Hello, Chairwoman Kim. Yes, it's like this. Mr. Wong's hearing had already fully recovered last month. He even told me not to say anything. He wanted to surprise you when you registered your marriage, so he specifically asked me to keep it secret. But your company still sent over a payment for further treatment. We've already refunded it. Anyway, congratulations on your upcoming wedding. Sophia froze. Something in that message suddenly struck her hard. She asked sharply, What did you say? Last month. He recovered last month. Yes, on the 23rd. Mr. Wong had completely recovered. By then, didn't you know? The 23rd of last month. Wasn't that the day before she took that call and decided to give Makoto an official place? That meant George had known everything from the start. All the attention, all the care she'd shown to Makoto afterward, George had seen it all. And still he hadn't said a word. How heartbroken must he have been? That man who had loved her so deeply. Sophia staggered as she walked. Her emotions had reached a breaking point. She had to find George. She had to tell him it wasn't what he thought. It was her. She had messed up. She had hurt him, let him hate her, let him curse her. But she would not let him leave. Just then, Makoto appeared and stopped her. "Where are you going?" Sophia paused for a moment. "I'm going to find George. He's gone. I have to find him." Makoto's jaw clenched. He wrapped his arms around her. "If he's gone, then let him go. Now we can finally be together, out in the open." Sophia let him hold her, but she said nothing. She should feel happy, but she didn't know why. Her mind was filled with George. His voice, his smile, his joy when he called her name, his tears, his laughter, all of it. Makoto, holding Sophia in his arms, noticed. She remained stiff and unmoved. A flash of malice crossed Makoto's eyes. Suddenly, he let go of her. He snatched the fruit knife from the table and held it to his own throat. Staring at Sophia with fierce determination, he said, "Back then I lost you for all kinds of stupid reasons, but now fate has finally given me another chance. In this lifetime, I only ever wanted you. If you won't have me, I might as well be dead." "Are you insane?" Sophia cried out in panic. "What if you actually hurt yourself?" But Makoto didn't waver. "If I don't have you, what's the point of living?" The blade tilted downward, blood was about to spill. Sophia, unable to bear the thought of Makoto getting hurt, finally gave in. "Fine," she said, her voice tight. "I promise." With a clang, Makoto dropped the knife. Overjoyed, he scooped Sophia into his arms. "I knew it, Sophia. I knew your heart still belonged to me." Sophia gently patted his back to calm him. But deep inside, a faint unease stirred in her chest. From the moment this began, a voice had been whispering inside her. "Sophia, you better not regret this. Meeting you is the best thing that ever happened to me." Makoto held Sophia's hand, eyes full of emotion. Originally, Makoto was about to be expelled from the main family due to his awkward status, but Sophia's intervention put a stop to that plan. In other words, even without making it official, it was now obvious that Makoto had been marked as Sophia's man. "After the regular meeting, let's go shopping together," he said. Makoto nodded with a smile. The best decision he ever made in his life was getting rid of George and getting back together with Sophia. "As long as you like it," he added. Sophia didn't show much emotion. These days, she found herself thinking of George from time to time. Even when facing a former lover who had desperately tried to come back to her, Sophia wasn't as happy as she had imagined she'd be. The assistant sat in the back seat, casting a hard-to-read glance at Makoto. Ever since George left, he just couldn't bring himself to like this man. After that day when Makoto threatened suicide, the two of them never publicly declared a relationship, but everyone in their circle tacitly acknowledged that they were a couple. Sophia even brought Makoto directly to company executive meetings under the pretense of collaboration with the Ito family. But who didn't know Sophia was just using the opportunity to back Makoto up? After their shopping trip, Sophia brought Makoto back to the company. The two of them held hands the whole way, drawing envious stares and flattery from everyone around them. Makoto wore sunglasses, hiding the smug satisfaction in his eyes. He opened the message interface again. "Look at my glamorous life now. Something you could never dream of having in 1,000 lifetimes. With your trashy family, a deadbeat dad, an irresponsible mother, and you, just a sewer rat of a son. You're not even fit to shine my shoes and you dared to fight me over a woman? What a joke." A malicious smile crept wider on his lips, until the moment the message turned into a red exclamation mark. His smile froze. Makoto never expected that I, the one who always silently accepted his messages and never pushed back, would actually block him. His strange reaction caught Sophia's attention. She lowered her head and asked, What's wrong? With a careless glance, she saw a familiar name, George. Sewer rat, deadbeat dad, trashy family, fighting over a woman. These phrases exploded in Sophia's mind. She snatched the phone from Makoto's hand. Pointing at the screen, her voice trembled. You've been sending this kind of crap to George? Makoto hadn't expected her to reach out so quickly. Faced with Sophia's questioning, he said self-righteously, I was just angry, okay? He had you for so long. Sophia couldn't hear a single word of it. Those venomous insults flashed through her mind again and again. She wondered, was George's sudden disappearance because Makoto had been sending him abuse like this all along? And had George assumed from her continued kindness to Makoto that she condoned it? Sophia's face grew colder and colder. Makoto started to panic. I know it was wrong, but I just couldn't help it. Just this once, Sophia. Forgive me just this once. I only needed to blow off some steam. But after that brief panic, Makoto quickly calmed himself. George was gone and all the chat logs were deleted. Sophia had no proof, and the message hadn't even been delivered. Sophia had always been soft-hearted. She wouldn't really do anything. Just then, the housekeeper knocked on the door. Chairwoman Kim, Mr. Wong left something behind last time when he left in a hurry. Would you like to see it now? Makoto's face turned pale the moment he saw what the housekeeper handed over. It was 2 red-colored fake marriage certificates and a thick stack of text messages full of insults and provocations, all sent from Makoto's phone. Sophia trembled as she read through them. Only then did she realize. Ever since Makoto returned to the country, the harassment and insults toward George had never stopped. Sophia closed her eyes in pain. Seeing her expression, Makoto panicked. I did all of this just because I love you so much. I'm the one who loves you the most, so why should it be him by your side instead of me? She took a deep breath. What she saw today was already like this, so what about what she hadn't seen? He was insulted. He gave her his blood. He was so full of joy about recovering his hearing and wanted to surprise her, only to hear something like that. All those days and nights. George, you must have been in so much pain. Now, whenever Sophia thought of George, her chest ached with a tightness she couldn't bear. She never gave George a proper explanation, and now everything, this whole mess, was her fault. Makoto deserved blame, yes, but more than that, she blamed herself. She had wronged George, so now she needed to make it right. You can't live here anymore. Move back to the villa I bought for you. This place belongs to George. If he comes back and finds out you stayed here, he'll be upset. Without hesitation, Sophia delivered her eviction notice. Makoto stared at her in disbelief. Sophia, you're kicking me out? Sophia's tone was calm and cold. I'm just asking you to live somewhere else. Why? Makoto raised his voice, unable to understand why Sophia would throw him out for someone he saw as irrelevant. Because I'm going to find George. I hurt him and now I need to make it up to him. Makoto was furious. He's gone. He's not coming back. Sophia cut him off without blinking. He will. Makoto refused to leave, dragging his feet, even knocking over a painting I had bought before. Sophia's gaze turned ice-cold. With a wave of her hand, she summoned the servants. The servants clamped a hand over Makoto's mouth and dragged his struggling body into the car. As she thought of my face, Sophia's expression softened without her realizing it. That gentle, kind person. He had always belonged to her and only her. Her face gradually calmed, but in her eyes, something had shifted. A resolve, fierce and unwavering, now burned there. Every word, firm and unshakable. He loved me so much. He only left because he's waiting for me to find him. As long as I go to him, he will come back. She regretted it, so she would use every connection, pay any price, and do whatever it took to find me. Blame her? Fine. Hate her? Fine. Even if it cost her life, she would accept it gladly. As long as I didn't leave her, anything was worth it. George, wait for me. The plane landed. The moment I stepped out of the airport, I was suddenly hugged tightly by an elegantly dressed woman. My son, my baby, you're finally here. Seeing my mother getting more and more emotional, I said helplessly, "All right, I'm here now. You'll see me every day from now on." Sandra wiped her tears, nodding while sighing in relief. "Once I move all my businesses back from overseas, you'll basically be a second-generation rich kid in China too." Sandra's company wasn't small. In fact, even as an overseas enterprise, it was considered top-tier back home. But I had never shown interest in those things, so I never mentioned them. Not even Sophia knew about this part of my background. Add to that the fact that my father had married into the family and took my mother's surname, it was even less likely anyone would make the connection. I didn't take Sandra's words seriously. I just focused on getting my school enrollment done. Even though my work had been stolen, I still remembered everything. With some rushed effort and a few old drafts, I managed to hand in a portfolio. "That girl with the last name Kim, are you still thinking about her?" Sandra served me a bite of food, asking cautiously, "You mean Sophia?" I replied indifferently, showing no emotion at all. "She has a boyfriend now." I truly didn't care anymore. The moment I stepped onto that plane, the past was erased. Every bit of it. "Sophia, when I say I'm done, I mean it." Sandra breathed a sigh of relief when she heard that. Then she said, "I'm still not at ease about your hearing. I've scheduled an appointment with a doctor. Go get it checked tomorrow." I kept eating while shaking my head. "I'm not going. I'm already fine." Back then, just to recover my hearing so I wouldn't become a burden to Sophia, I endured electrotherapy 3 times a day. It hurt so bad I'd tremble through the nights. Now that I've recovered, no matter what kind of treatment it is, I'm not going back. But this time, Sandra didn't give in to me like she usually did. Her tone was firm. "No, I'm going with you tomorrow and you will go." I had spent more of my childhood with my father, so I knew Sandra felt guilty for neglecting me due to her work. I didn't want to go, but in the end, I agreed. The next day, right after I got my number at the hospital, my mom disappeared. Left with the test films in hand, I sat down to wait for the doctor. Hearing footsteps, I instinctively looked up. "Doctor, you're..." I got stuck halfway through my sentence, because I had never seen a doctor this young and beautiful. She had a graceful yet distant air. Slim figure, elegance exuding from every move. If not for the white lab coat, you'd mistake her for a top-tier celebrity. "Hello, I'm your attending physician, Willow. How long has it been since your hearing recovered?" Willow spoke without much expression as she took my case file and sat down naturally. "Around a month, I guess." I came back to my senses, realizing how rude I had looked. A bit embarrassed. Naturally, I didn't notice how, when Willow saw the line "hearing loss due to head trauma," a flash of cold fury passed through her eyes. "You've recovered well." Willow gestured for me to come closer. "I'll take a look at your eardrums and ear canals now." I tilted my head. Willow stood up, one hand supporting my head, the other holding a flashlight. The sudden physical contact startled me. She seemed to notice what I was thinking and chuckled softly. "I need to insert something into your ear. One hand's to keep you from moving and affecting the exam." Realizing my misunderstanding, I said nothing more. Her gentle breath brushed past my temple. Unlike the sandalwood perfume Sophia used to wear, Willow smelled of fresh floral fragrance. Moments later, she let go. "Your recovery is decent, but just to be safe, you'll still need some follow-up therapy." My face was still full of Willow's scent, and I just wanted to end the moment quickly. In a hurry, I pulled out my phone. "Let me add you on WeChat then, we'll keep in touch." Willow smiled lightly. Her voice was soft and calm like cedarwood, but it made my heart skip a beat. "Looks like, as your arranged blind date, I've passed the first round." After adding her on WeChat, I finally realized the woman standing in front of me was actually the blind date my mom had set up for me. It was still a bit awkward, but once that blind date label came into play, our relationship subtly shifted. From just a patient and doctor, we became more like two young people being match-made online by meddling parents. Somehow, that closeness became more natural. When we learned that our parents were old friends, we ended up going out for a meal together. "You're already a lead physician at such a young age?" I asked. "MHM. I used to study psychology but later switched to ENT. Willow answered calmly, but that still genuinely surprised me. Curious, I followed up, why switch out of the blue like that? But Willow just smiled. That's a question I'll answer another time. I wasn't the kind to pry. All right then. As she looked at me, there was something Willow didn't say aloud. Just like how I didn't know the answer to that question. She didn't understand her own thoughts either. That afternoon I had to go to school. Willow's villa was nearby, so she brought me over. Having lived here for a long time, she naturally became my tour guide. It felt like I had gone back to when I had just met Sophia. No exhaustion, just energy and warmth. And I found that Willow, for someone so proud and reserved, was surprisingly willing to go along with my nonsense. Not in a sarcastic or jokey way, but in a sincere, straight-faced kind of way that made every reply feel like a promise. I couldn't help but start teasing her. Do you think I can catch the fish in this lake? They look so fat. I want to eat one. Sure, if you want one. I'll catch it for you now. That museum over there's closed off. Can we really go in? Just started school. Will I get in trouble? No. If you want to go in, then go. No one would dare stop you. Does spicy food affect my ears? Even if it does, I still want to eat it. It doesn't. And even if it did, I'd treat you. This kind of back and forth went on all day. At some point, I realized I hadn't felt this relaxed in a long time. When I was with Sophia, I was constantly aware of the class divide, always tense. But with Willow, I unknowingly let go and just was myself. Before I knew it, it was already dark. All right, we've been running around all day. Time to go back and do your rehab exercises. I didn't want to go. But Willow, usually so gentle, was surprisingly firm about this. Don't worry, it won't hurt. She reassured me again and again before I finally gave in. Willow's rehab therapy was just listening to soft, high-quality music. No pain, no stress. Watching her walk out and close the door behind her, I thought, if things continued like this with Willow, it wouldn't be so bad. But the moment she stepped outside, all that gentle warmth disappeared from her face. She answered a phone call, and her soft eyes turned cold and vicious in an instant. I told you, stop anyone from Sophia's side from digging for information. Use any means necessary. Even hitting her company is fine. Seal off all intel related to George. Not a single word is allowed to leak. Then, pressing her temples with her fingers, a cruel smile slowly crept onto Willow's face. And as for that man she loved so deeply, the one we tracked down before, let a little piece of that info accidentally slip. I can't wait to see the look on Sophia's face when she finds out what kind of person the man she loved to her bones truly is. Ever since the last incident, after Makoto was forced to move out, Sophia hadn't stepped foot in his new place again. Even when she did see him, it was purely out of obligation to care for him, as she had once promised. Aside from hospital or company visits, she had nothing to do with him anymore. The rest of her days were spent going in and out of the company verifying every scrap of information. Her mind filled entirely with one thing: finding me. Sir, I told Chairwoman Kim you were having another relapse, but she only said you could use her credit card to pay for treatment. She didn't say she'd come see you. The servant's voice grew quieter and quieter. Makoto, furious, flipped the table over. This was already the third time he'd tried to get Sophia to come visit him, and been rejected. Makoto stared at the photo in his hand. George, you'd better pray you never show up and get in my way again. If you do, you're gonna regret it. In the time that followed, thanks to deliberate efforts from both our families, Willow began visiting more frequently for business matters. As the host, it was only natural for me to meet and entertain her. We reviewed documents together at the company, watched sunrises together, ate Japanese food together, attended the opera together. If I was happy, Willow was happy. If I was upset, Willow was upset too. So on one sunny and peaceful afternoon, I kissed Willow lightly on the corner of her lips. The same Willow who, at just 18, could shake up the entire business world. At this moment, looked lost like a child. She seemed uneasy. You don't regret it? I didn't answer. Instead, I smiled and deepened the kiss. The next day, we went home together. Sandra was overjoyed. Her smile couldn't have been wider. I heard your company back home ran into some trouble. You'll be heading back at the end of the month? Sandra asked. Willow paused, then nodded. Yes, Auntie. Well, if you're going back, make sure you clean everything up properly. Sandra's smile faded as she gave Willow a sidelong glance. Willow replied respectfully, I will, Auntie. They were both sharp players in the business world. So Willow knew exactly what Sandra meant. Everyone already knew Willow had feelings for me, and they also knew she'd been going head-to-head with Sophia's company back in China. Sandra's words referred not only to business but also made it clear to tie up loose ends, including personal ones. You're going back, huh? Then I won't see you for a while, I said. Sandra cut in. Not just her. You're going back too. I froze. Sure, Willow leaving so suddenly made me feel a little off, but not to the point where I'd ditch my education just to follow her back. I set up a company with his parents. You two are the heirs, you'll need to return to handle it. I can't leave right now, so you'll have to go. When it came to business, it was serious. I didn't protest any further. All right, I'll go. But what about my studies? I haven't finished school yet. Hearing my tone soften, Willow lifted her cup, hiding the playful curl of her lips behind it. Leave it to me. It wasn't until the next day that I understood what she meant by, leave it to me. Somehow, Willow had gotten her hands on a painting by Diva, the very same artist whose work had once been snatched away by Makoto. She gave it to my professor, and in an instant, the man lit up with joy and gave me an easy pass. Before I could even react, Willow told me she had actually gotten 2 paintings, and she had saved one for me. Wait, wasn't there only one original? I was caught between being stunned by her resourcefulness and surprised that she even knew I liked that artist. But Willow didn't seem fazed at all. As long as you buy the first one, the rest will follow. You're my fiancée. What you like and what you need, that's what I like and what I need. Strictly speaking, that wasn't really a romantic line, because Willow's expression was way too serious. But maybe it was that very seriousness, combined with everything she'd done, that made my nose sting with emotion. I wasn't the sentimental type, but somewhere along the way, these quiet little feelings had been building up. Before we left, Willow suddenly looked at me solemnly. I want to make you a promise. This time when you return with me, no matter what happens, trust me, I'll always be on your side, from beginning to end. So don't be afraid. My past wasn't exactly a secret. Willow knew what I had suffered. Looking at her now, this normally cool, composed person speaking like she was taking an oath. A wave of warmth and numbness surged in my chest. I nodded and smiled, reaching for her hand. Okay. In that moment, something inside me let go. All the painful memories, all the years of hardship, all the anxiety and sorrow from having my heart crushed beneath someone's heel. All of it healed because of Willow's presence. We returned to China together. When Willow's old team heard that their boss was quitting medicine and returning to take over the company, and bringing back a boyfriend with her, they all tried to wait for us at the airport. But Willow, claiming she didn't want to scare me, dragged them all away. Not far behind, barely 30 meters away, Sophia stood, holding her phone, her face cold and furious. I'll say it one more time. Do whatever it takes to track George down. I don't care what the Liu family wants. I only want George. I was Sandra's first-in-line heir. Now that I was back, I took over the company directly. Because of the collaboration between our 2 families, we held a formal banquet. At this point, the ones calling the shots for both the Wang and Liu families were Willow and me. You're about to go up and speak as the company's CEO. How do you feel? Not bad. What I was worried about wasn't the speech, but the fact that in a business circle this small, once you throw a big event under the company's name, you're bound to run into people you'd rather never see again. To avoid trouble, I had Willow send out the invitations listing only our representative names, not mine. The stifling atmosphere of the banquet irritated me. I'm going for a walk. Come find me later. Willow replied, Okay, be careful. I had just walked over to the lakeside and hadn't even sat down yet when I heard a familiar voice. Well, I thought you looked familiar. It's George. I turned toward the sound. Sure enough, it was Makoto, dressed in a bright blue suit. Ever since Sophia made him move out of the villa, he had no choice but to give in. He begged for ages before convincing Sophia to let him move back in. But even then, she spent all her time searching for me, and their relationship wasn't what it used to be. Now, seeing me again, Makoto's heart was filled with resentment. I didn't want to get into it with him, so I turned to leave. But a group of Makoto's buddies blocked my way. Where you rushing off to? Come on, guys, isn't this the deaf guy from before? The one who cruelly pushed Makoto down just to keep Chairwoman Kim's attention? That's right. TSK, look at the way he's dressed. What, sold yourself off again? Got yourself another sugar daddy? Sophia arrived at the police station, already having pulled the necessary strings. The moment Makoto saw her, his eyes were reddened, and he rushed towards her, wrapping his arms tightly around her. Sophia, I thought I'd never see you again. Thank God you came. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't even know what to do. For some reason, ever since seeing George again, Sophia had started to feel repulsed by Makoto's touch. A voice inside her kept whispering, George wouldn't like this. George wouldn't like me like this. But not wanting to upset Makoto further, Sophia didn't push him away. Her hand hovered gently, patting him without much feeling. Just then, her secretary glanced at Makoto. After hesitating for a moment, she leaned in and whispered something into Sophia's ear. In that instant, Sophia's body went completely stiff. Makoto, still lost in his emotions, was suddenly gripped hard by Sophia. Sophia, that hurts. Before he could finish, Sophia's voice came down like a blade, cold and merciless. You were in an open relationship abroad. You pressured the woman into multiple abortions until she became infertile and only CA. They weren't even trying to lower their voices. A crowd began to gather. Nobody knew who I was, but everyone knew Makoto. In an instant, all the eyes around me turned strange. When I heard that last comment, my eyes went cold. Watch your mouth, I warned. Makoto sneered. He already had Sophia. He didn't even bother pretending with me anymore. And you're still trying to act noble? You're just some nobody from a dead-end family. The only reason you even had a job back then was because Sophia handed it to you out of pity. If it weren't for that hearing loss, forget dignity, you wouldn't have even survived. By now, my expression was ice cold. I'm calling security. People like you aren't welcome here. Makoto looked at me with pure disgust. And you think you can act all high and mighty just because someone's keeping you? He gave a look, and his crew instantly got the message. One of them shoved me hard. I was already standing near the edge of the lake. With that push, I went straight into the water. The splash was massive. People onshore rushed to help. Willow heard the commotion and came running, only to witness the scene, her eyes blazing with fury. I was pulled out of the water, but because I had been soaked for too long, I sat to the side, looking pale and completely drenched. What happened here? A sharp gaze swept across everyone present. Makoto knew Willow. The Liu family had always been among the elite in their circle, top tier. Their status was no lower than Sophia's, if anything, it was even higher. So the moment Willow appeared, Makoto raised his wine glass and said, No one knows how this guy got in. He used to be a deaf simp who shamelessly begged to be kept as a sugar baby. Now he's been kicked out for good. All he knows is how to fake being pitiful. President Liu, don't be fooled. Willow narrowed her eyes at Makoto, and that sharp glare made his heart tremble. He instinctively took a step back. Willow helped me to my feet, her expression icy and stern. Then let me make things clear right here and now. This gentleman beside me, Mr. George, is the only son of President Wang, the first-in-line heir to the Wang family overseas. Just like me, he holds the position of CEO and he's also my fiancée. The crowd erupted in astonishment. First-in-line heir to the Wang family. A CEO on the same level as Willow. Fiancé. Any one of these titles alone would make headlines. Now all three titles belong to one man. The atmosphere exploded like a powder keg. Those who had just looked on with disdain now suddenly had cautious expressions. Some who were good at reading the room were already changing their tone. Just as the congratulations were about to be spoken, another thunderclap rolled through the crowd. George has always been my husband, mine. What does he have to do with you, Willow? Sophia's voice rang out. The crowd erupted once again. First, my identity had been revealed. Then came two heavyweights. One was the heiress of the prestigious Liu family, a century-old noble house. The other was Sophia of the Kim family, a rising star who built her empire with her own hands. Either of them alone was a figure who commanded respect wherever they went. And now the air was thick with tension as the two locked horns over a man who had once been completely unknown. Oh, married? When did that happen? Why am I the person involved, the last to know? Chairwoman Kim must be so busy with her business empire that she can't even remember who her husband is. I had already recovered by now. Upon hearing Sophia's words, I replied coldly. Sophia stared at me, trying to read my face, but no matter how hard she looked, there was no trace of softness. She stepped forward, trying to approach me, but the security guards blocked her path. Willow's expression was icy cold, and Sophia had no choice but to stop in her tracks. Yes, I said. Sophia reached out anxiously. We haven't registered the marriage yet. Just wait for me. Give me time. I'll fix everything. Before she could finish, Makoto suddenly stepped in front of her. Sophia, we have registered our marriage. You and I are the ones who are legally married. Didn't Chairwoman Kim already sign the papers? You can't even remember who your husband is. Willow's mocking voice rang out. Everyone in this circle already knew about Sophia and Makoto. It wasn't a secret. In fact, Makoto had even posted about their marriage online back then. As waves of murmurs rippled through the crowd, Sophia turned to me in a panic. It's not like that, George. Please believe me. She wanted to explain that it was a temporary solution, that she only married Makoto because he was struggling after returning to the country. Otherwise, he would have been cast aside in political games. She thought of a dozen excuses, but when she looked up, she was stunned to find my expression calm and indifferent. I hadn't even spared her a glance. It was total disregard. Sophia felt a sharp ache in her chest. Suddenly, she remembered what the doctor had once told her. Mr. Wong's hearing had already recovered long ago, and her own words at the time, now that he's finally come back, I won't let go. So it was she who had hurt George's heart. She had been wrong from the very beginning. The man who used to be closest to her was now someone else's fiancé. A crushing sense of loss swallowed her whole. Sophia stood there, dazed, staring at me in a trance. My fiancé falling into the water today wasn't an accident. The Liu family and the Wong family aren't people you can just mess with. Since you chose to provoke us, then be ready to pay the price. Willow turned her gaze away from Sophia. I've already called the police. I hope you're ready to face an attempted murder charge. People behind began to grab hold of Makoto. There was surveillance footage of me falling into the water. The ones behind it, Makoto and the man who pushed me, weren't going to escape this. Makoto struggled like mad. He couldn't go to jail, not now. He had just gained shares in Sophia's company and finally lifted his head in his own household. If he went to prison, everything would be gone. Sophia, save me. Sophia, don't you remember our vows? You said we'd always be together. You promised to stay with me for life. The officers behind him showed no mercy. The cold click of handcuffs rang out as they locked his wrists. No one can save you now, one officer said coldly. Do you even realize who you've messed with? Sophia snapped back to reality just in time to see Makoto being pushed into the police car. Before her eyes stood George and Willow, standing intimately close. But George's gaze remained cold and distant, completely devoid of emotion. The sheer contrast and mental blow caused a surge of blood to rise in Sophia's chest. With a choked cry, she suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. The crowd screamed and scattered. When Sophia was carried into the ambulance, her gaze was still fixed in my direction. It wasn't her first time in the hospital. But no matter when or where it was in the past, I had always been the one staying by her side, sleepless and tireless. This time, though, aside from the initial surprise when she coughed up blood, I didn't spare her a single glance. A bitter taste rose in Sophia's throat. She gave a wry smile. Karma never misses. This was what she deserved. After settling me into the hospital, Willow made a phone call. About Makoto, let them handle it. No need to press too hard. If he's meant to be released, let him out. There was hesitation on the other end. But he did take action. Willow lowered her eyes slightly and replied casually. Life in the station is too easy. He gets food and shelter. Let him out and hand over the evidence to Sophia. I believe anyone would break if they found out they were being used like a toy. I was hospitalized under heavy pressure. When Sophia found out, she ignored all opposition and insisted on seeing me. But she was stopped outside by Willow's people. Move. Let me in. Sophia's eyes flashed with cold fire as she stared down the bodyguards in front of her. Just one door stood between her and George. She had to get through Chairwoman Kim. As Sophia tried to force her way in, a friend of Makoto's rushed up and grabbed her arm. Chairwoman Kim, Makoto's never suffered like this in his whole life. That place is harsh, really miserable. You've got to get him out fast. That should be your priority right now. Sophia froze in her steps. Just let me see him for a moment. Chairwoman Kim, the longer you wait, the more he suffers. The first thing Makoto did when he came back to the country was look for you. You can't just leave him there like this. Sophia wavered. She and Makoto had grown up together, childhood sweethearts. She couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Standing just one wall away from George, Sophia silently made a vow. George, wait for me. I'll win your heart back. I swear. Then she turned and walked away decisively. The commotion outside wasn't small. I heard it all clearly, but I didn't care. Sophia was in the past. I would only move forward, never look back. I drank the warm porridge Willow had cooled and fed me. Do you want to see her? Willow asked calmly, but I noticed her knuckles gradually turning white. Smiling, I reassured her. No, I'm back here because you couldn't handle the consequences. That sentence hit Makoto like a bucket of ice water dumped over his head. He instantly panicked, completely at a loss. Sophia, what are you talking about? How could I possibly be that kind of person? None of that is true. You have to believe me. He was frantically denying everything, emotions running wild. Sophia didn't speak. She took the envelope handed over by her assistant, pulled out the contents, and flung them into Makoto's face. Makoto's hands trembled as he bent down to pick them up. In the photos was a seductive-looking woman wearing revealing clothes, surrounded by several shirtless men. He was among them. Scattered across the floor were torn condom wrappers. Behind the photos were 2 ultrasound records, a diagnosis stating permanent infertility, and even 1 or 2 amniocentesis reports, all clearly naming Makoto Ito as the biological father. Anyone with half a brain could put the pieces together. Sophia had always known the tricks and games people played in their social circle, but she never imagined one day she'd be dragged into them herself. So you rushed back to me after returning to the country because you were afraid your family's arranged engagement would be exposed. So you thought of me? Sophia's voice trembled. She stared at the man before her like he was a complete stranger. Makoto shook his head, his throat tightening. But with the evidence so irrefutable, he couldn't utter a single word. For you, I forged a fake marriage certificate to lie to George. For you, I shielded you every step of the way. I even let you into my company and gave you shares. And this is how you repay me? Her heart was now as calm as death. Even as she wanted to distance herself from Makoto, another face suddenly surfaced in her mind. Her George. Back then, after being injured by a clinical trial, she had almost become a cripple, until George appeared out of nowhere, taking care of her and resurrecting her failing company at the same time. She had been too heartbroken over Makoto's sudden disappearance, and so had treated George's care with passive acceptance. But over time, George had melted her heart. She had tucked away her memories of Makoto, thinking a new beginning with George wouldn't be so bad after all. It was her fault. She was the one who ruined everything. Makoto clung to her hand, refusing to let go. Sophia, it's not what you think. I was threatened. I was forced into it. It's not like that. Sophia shoved him off with disgust. Get away from me. She had to find George. No one could stop her now. She rushed back to the hospital, only to be told by the staff that George had already been discharged. When did he leave? Where did he go? Her hysterics scared the nurses. With no information at all, Sophia, devastated, wandered into a KTV lounge to drink herself into a stupor. Sophia, is it really worth all this? For a man? As soon as she sat down, she downed a full glass of vodka. Her expression was lifeless, with none of the pride or confidence she once carried. Ugh, I heard all about it. You were fighting with someone from the Liu family over a man. Not to be harsh, Sophia, but you must be out of your mind. I mean, the guy was deaf. Even if he's some overnight success now, a nobody will always be a nobody. The woman hadn't even finished her sentence when Sophia suddenly lunged. Slap. A harsh palm landed squarely on her face. The always dignified and elegant Sophia now looked ice-cold and murderous as she swept her gaze across the room. George lost his hearing because of me. From now on, if I ever hear anyone say one bad word about him, I don't care who you are, I'll make sure it ends with one of us dead. Sophia stumbled out, completely drunk, swaying as she walked. Makoto grabbed her. Sophia wrapped her arms around Makoto's waist before he could finish speaking. A brief moment of joy flashed across his face, only for it to be replaced with jealousy as he watched Sophia gasp in delight. George, you came back, she exclaimed. Makoto's expression froze, his chest tightening with jealousy. But he didn't correct her. Instead, he softened his tone and said gently, Yes, it's me. I'm back. Makoto couldn't afford to lose now, not when everything was at stake. He had to marry Sophia. The photos they had taken together were real, but his family had already washed their hands of him. If Sophia only had a marriage license with him but no public wedding, in the eyes of their elite circle, she wouldn't truly be his wife. His status would be ruined. But if the media caught them in bed together that night, their marriage would be seen as real, and Sophia wouldn't be able to back out without causing a scandal. Meanwhile, Willow was video calling me to say goodnight. Sitting in her car, her smile faded. She looked out into the distance, her tone icy as she said, Since Makoto already tipped off the media, let's give him exactly what he wants. Tell the major outlets to go all in. Blow this up so big that the entire Kim family can't clean up the mess. Sophia sank into the soft bed, and Makoto ran his hand across her bare skin, an indescribable heat rushing through him. He rolled on top of her, and the sound of their heavy breaths filled the room, rising and falling in waves. Outside the window, the press had gathered in full force, their cameras ready to capture everything. Sophia felt a wave of exhaustion leave her body. In her haze, it felt as though she had returned to a time when I was still by her side. Before she could speak, the door suddenly slammed open. Chairwoman Kim, you caused a huge scene at the banquet of President Liu and Mr. Wang, shouting that Mr. Wang was your fiancé. And now you're in bed with the Ito family's young master. Care to explain that? Sophia's heart dropped. She flung the covers off, only to see that it wasn't the man she had longed for. It wasn't George. It was Makoto. What the hell are you doing here? She spat. Makoto flinched at the disgust in her eyes. The sting of her words cut deep. All because of George. But the media behind them gave her no time to react. Flashbulbs blazed in her face. Chairwoman Kim, reports say you and Makoto already registered your marriage. Now that you've been found in bed together, does this confirm the nature of your relationship? Chairwoman Kim, when will you and Mr. Ito hold your wedding ceremony? The endless stream of questions pushed Sophia to the brink of frustration. She feared that if George found out, it would only make their already fragile relationship worse. She shouted for them to stop filming, but not a single person listened. Even when she threatened legal action, they showed no fear, as if the ambush had all been planned in advance. Then came one final question, and that's when Sophia realized it. She'd been set up. Her eyes went cold as she stared at Makoto. You planned this. Sophia had never allowed herself to be threatened by anyone. At worst, she'd fall out publicly with the Ito family. But she would never let this kind of scandal push George even further away from her. Makoto could tell from the look on her face. She was furious. He also knew that this was his last chance, right here in front of the media. He leaned in and lowered his voice. A lot of people saw George push me down the stairs that day. Right now, he's the target of public criticism. If someone decides to run with that story, he'll go back to being that unwanted deaf nobody. And think about it, after he lost his hearing, he stayed at home while you supported him. If word gets out that George was just mooching off you like a kept man, his reputation will be destroyed. Sophia's lips pressed into a tight line. She could hear the threat beneath his words. But this involved George, and she couldn't afford to gamble. She didn't dare take that risk. Taking a deep breath, she turned toward the sea of cameras and said calmly, "Yes, Makoto and I are legally married. The wedding will be held very soon." A reporter pressed on, "What about what you said before? About your relationship with Mr. Wong?" Sophia's gaze lingered on the flashing cameras. In her mind, the image of that familiar face surfaced. "George," she whispered, "this is only a temporary measure. Once I've cleaned up this mess, I'll come find you. Promise. There's nothing between us. I was drunk that night and said things I shouldn't have. He and I, we're not close." The media reported in real time. I heard it all clearly. Willow reached for the remote and switched off the TV. "Why watch trash on such a good day?" she remarked coolly. I didn't say anything. I just smiled at her. I used to be a director in this company, so I knew these tactics all too well. I suspected Willow had stirred the pot from behind the scenes. In fact, knowing her methods, she may have orchestrated the entire thing herself. But I was genuinely amused. "I heard from my mom that you've known me for a long time. When was that?" I asked. "A long time ago," Willow replied, leaning against my chest. She hadn't planned to answer, but I kept asking, and eventually, she gave in with a helpless sigh. "Back then, my parents had divorced and I was living with my father. He was weak-willed and constantly bullied, and I got dragged into it with him. At the same time, I was abducted by a rival family and dumped into a local orphanage. Because of my proud and distant personality, I couldn't get along with anyone and was often denied food. I was just a little kid, but when I saw you squatting alone outside, hungry, I started splitting my food with you every day. Half for me, half for you. I kept doing that until someone came and took you away." "You were that kid?" I said, surprised. She nodded. "You've changed so much." I smiled, but Willow remained perfectly calm. Our story sounded cliché, like something straight out of a drama. But when she later looked into me and found out I was a good man and considered making a move, she also discovered I was involved with Sophia. She felt indignant but powerless. Still, she knew Sophia was no good. So, when she uncovered even the slightest clue that Sophia had a secret crush on Makoto, she began laying the groundwork, pushing for Makoto's return and engineering every step that led Sophia to make one foolish mistake after another until I finally left her. This wasn't just strategy, it was obsession. Willow had made up her mind. In this lifetime, she would have me no matter what. "Well, if fate brought us together like this," I said, taking her hand with a smile, "then let's get married soon." I knew she was uneasy, and as long as I stayed in the country, as long as I still had business here, I would inevitably run into Sophia again. I didn't know why Sophia had suddenly started clinging to me again, completely changing her previous attitude. But I didn't care. Better to cut cleanly now than drag it out. The sooner we married, the better. When Sophia received the wedding invitation from me and Willow, she was at the villa. The bright red invitation seared into her eyes like fire. She went mad, flinging it violently to the floor. George would never marry some shady woman like her. Who the hell does Willow think she is? After the media incident, the head of the Ito family had immediately come to see her. With Makoto's threats piling on, Sophia had no way out. She had no choice but to agree to start planning the wedding. "Sophia, if you just marry me, I swear I'll treat you right. I'll be devoted to you and only you. George is already engaged to someone else. He has nothing to do with you anymore," Makoto shouted hoarsely, his eyes red with desperation. Sophia didn't even listen. She glanced at the address, picked up her coat, and headed for the door. "Have you forgotten everything we've been through?" he cried. "You risked your life trying that dangerous drug for me. After all these years, you'd still choose George over me?" She brushed past him, annoyed, grabbed her car keys, and left without a word. Makoto stood there, face twisted with fury. He picked up his phone, dialing a number with shaking hands. "I'll pay you. Use the dirtiest, most vicious method you can find. Destroy him." When Sophia arrived, she saw me in the hotel lobby, cupping Willow's face and kissing her. A surge of heat rushed to her head, rage and jealousy boiling together. That was something only she had the right to do with George. She stood in the doorway, her gaze sharp as a blade. "What do you think you're doing? What a husband and wife should be doing," Willow replied, her tone taunting, glancing at Sophia defiantly. Sophia's face turned dark, her expression grim. I stepped in front of Willow, stopping Sophia. "Are you insane, Sophia?" I asked. "You're about to marry Makoto. Why are you still clinging to me?" At the sight of me, Sophia's voice turned hoarse, filled with guilt. "George, it was my fault. I shouldn't have lied to you. I messed everything up. But if you'll come back with me, I'll break things off with Makoto immediately. I swear I'll never hurt you again. Please, can you forgive me? Let me make things right." As she reached out for my hand, I stepped back. "Sophia, there's nothing between us anymore." She froze. "You're not still thinking Makoto was innocent all along, and that I was the one who made a mistake back then, are you?" Her eyes turned sharp. "What do you mean?" Willow called someone out and pulled up a video on her phone. On the screen, it was clear. I was standing beside Makoto at the top of a staircase. For a brief moment, his face twisted into something sinister. He said something unintelligible, then tumbled down the stairs. My hands never moved. Not once. "Oh, and one more thing," Willow added coldly. "When you volunteered for that dangerous drug trial for him back then, he knew all the side effects. He just didn't tell you because he was afraid you'd back out. And even his return to the country wasn't because of you, it was part of another agenda. I'm sure you've figured that out by now." Her voice was as cold and emotionless as ever. But to Sophia, it was like lightning striking a clear sky. If Makoto had been faking everything, then back when I was already weakened from donating blood I had been forced to give, she still doubted me in public. She chose to defend Makoto in front of everyone. She even gave away the painting I had drawn for her, just to make Makoto happy. Every step, every choice, she had helped hurt me. Oh, and while Makoto was faking a fall and George was getting stitches in his scalp without anesthesia, you were off watching the sunset with Makoto. Sophia, you're the one who made him lose his hearing. You forced him to give blood. You humiliated him. You let him bleed and didn't even stay. You pressured him until he had to flee the country. If George's mother hadn't had some influence, he'd have been ruined, because of you. Now you come crawling back with your crocodile tears? You think you're worthy? Sophia didn't step foot into the wedding venue. She stood at a distance, but from where she stood, she could see everything. The vows, the kiss, the joy on our faces. For a moment, she drifted. She remembered George wearing a crisp white shirt, smiling gently as he asked when she'd be ready to marry him. He wanted to start preparing the dowry. She had been tipsy back then, picked up a soda can ring, and looped it over his finger. It had only been a few months ago, but it felt like a different lifetime. Chairwoman Kim, her assistant said hesitantly, "You asked me to keep tabs on Makoto. Today I overheard something." Sophia's eyes grew cold. "Speak." "He's trying to find people to kidnap Mr. Wong." As the call ended, a dangerous thought slowly took shape in Sophia's mind. She had been born from a loveless political marriage, so she had always cherished genuine love with all her heart. In the beginning, all the kids in their circle avoided her. Only Makoto had been willing to play with her. She had mistaken that attachment for true affection. She had been blind, treasuring fool's gold while letting go of the one man who truly loved her. And now, Sophia regretted it. But it was too late. Her George didn't want her anymore. She looked at me from afar, smiling with Willow, radiating happiness. She smiled too, bittersweetly. Then she picked up her phone and dialed. Makoto, where are you? I'm coming to see you. When Sophia called, Makoto was both thrilled and surprised. He was convinced she had finally come around. I'm at the villa, Sophia. I'll be waiting. Sophia arrived quickly and, upon entering, immediately dismissed all the staff. Makoto blinked in confusion. What's going on? He asked. Sophia replied calmly, Didn't you want to get married? What are all these unrelated people doing here? Makoto, overjoyed, hugged her tightly. Without a word, Sophia quietly slipped something into his drink and handed it to him. Blinded by happiness, he didn't notice the strange look in her eyes. When he finally woke up, groggy and confused, the room outside was ablaze. He tried to move only to realize he was tied to the bed, completely immobilized. Sophia stood, watching the flames lick the walls. She looked at Makoto's terrified eyes and softly said, Don't be afraid. I'll go with you. Makoto froze. Then it hit him what she meant. He let out muffled screams and thrashed desperately, but the restraints held firm. Sophia stared down at the photo of me on her phone. She smiled, completely at peace. In her daze, she saw the early days George, the refined and sincere man who had just entered her life. He had followed her around, helped her with everything, and later kissed her shyly. Afterward, that usually bold and cheerful man had blinked at her awkwardly and asked if he could be her boyfriend. She remembered what she had said then. She had said yes. She also remembered the vow she made as a child. When I grow up, I'll treasure anyone who truly loves me. How stupid she had been. All those years of obsession, just a joke. She had clutched onto Makoto, a man full of manipulation and lies, and in doing so, lost the one who loved her with all his heart. And worse, she had hurt him. But it was okay. There was still time to make amends. Sophia downed a whole bottle of sleeping pills, then lay down peacefully on the bed. She loved me, and hated me for leaving her, but love and hate over and over again. In the end, she had no one to blame but herself. As her consciousness faded, she remembered something I once said. Out of chaos came the two primal forces of yin and yang, and hatred and truth is simply love pushed to its extreme. Halfway through our wedding, Willow received the news. Sophia and Makoto had set themselves on fire and died together. Shut down all footage and online chatter. Bury this story completely, Willow instructed coldly. Everything Sophia did had been her own choice. Willow was no saint. When she first entered the business world, she had bankrupted a few small companies to make her mark. But all she ever really wanted was for me to be happy. So, anything that didn't matter, anyone who didn't matter, was erased from the picture. The Kim family collapsed almost overnight. With the Liu family involved, even those who had hoped to take a piece of the scandal helped to bury the story. Before long, the incident faded into silence. Our wedding went off without a hitch, and the Wang family's business steadied, growing stronger each day. Exhausted from a long day, I massaged my sore shoulders and turned to Willow, curiosity tugging at me. What exactly did you say to Sophia to get her to back off so cleanly? Willow pressed her fingers into the back of my neck, her touch soothing. Nothing much. She's a woman with a name to protect. It wouldn't have looked good for her to keep clinging. I nodded and didn't ask again. Later, Willow and I worked side by side to get the company back on track, uniting the Wang family with both domestic and overseas businesses. Once everything was settled, it was time for me to return to my studies. Before leaving, I took one last look at the familiar airport. Nearby, someone was reading a viral post aloud. Out of chaos came the two primal forces of yin and yang. I turned my head, smiling faintly, and softly finished the sentence in my heart. And hatred is simply love taken to its extreme.